everyone, and welcome to Choose Love Not Fear. My name is Shelly Bandel-Rawlings, and today I'm honored to be speaking with Reggie Littlejohn, a Yale-trained attorney, the founder of Women's Rights Without Frontiers, co-founder of the Sovereignty Coalition, and president of Anti-Globalist International. She's testified before the U.S. Congress, briefed officials at the White House and in the UN, and led major international campaigns like the effort to free blind Chinese activist Chen, I can't say her last name.
Chen Guangcheng.
Nice, thank you. Thank you so much. She's been one of the clearest and boldest voices warning the world about the dangers of global health governance and the threat the WHO, the World Health Organization, possess to national sovereignty. Reggie, thank you for joining us today. How are you?
Thank you so much for having me, and I'm very well.
Good. So, just for our viewers that may not know who you are, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and what brought you into this fight for sovereignty and human rights?
Sure, I'll be happy to. So as you mentioned, I'm an attorney, and in the mid-90s, I represented Chinese refugees in their cases for political asylum in the United States. And I represented two women who were victims of the one-child policy, either the forced abortion or forced sterilization. And I was horrified to learn that the one-child policy was not voluntary, which is what the Chinese Communist government propaganda was saying. It was forced abortion, forced sterilization, and infanticide, the killing of infants. So I left the practice of law and founded Women's Rights Without Frontiers to fight forced abortion in China. Then we expanded to saving baby girls from sex-selective abortion and abandonment, and then even to saving, abandoned widows in the Chinese countryside. And now we're even saving abandoned widows in Uganda, believe it or not. Wow. But when COVID hit, through a video by Naomi Wolf, I became alerted to the fact that the vaccine passports, is what they were calling them in the very beginning, that they could serve as a technological platform for the China social credit system to be spread worldwide. And having been battling the Chinese Communist Party since the mid-90s, I saw their system of governance and totalitarian control as being exported worldwide through the World Health Organization, and more recently through the United Nations. Of course, the World Health Organization is an arm of the United Nations. So I'm continuing with Women's Rights Without Frontiers. We're still saving babies and widows. We're still opposing coercive population control. Now it's the 3-child policy instead of the 1-child policy. But I co-founded the Sovereignty Coalition to fight these battles on U.S. soil, and then Anti-Globalist International to carry on the battle internationally. So that's how I got involved with this fight.
Wow, amazing. Let's jump into the World Health Organization for a minute, because right now we're in a critical moment. Even though the USA exited the World Health Organization, many other countries are still in agreement, pandemic treaty. I heard many names to it. Where do things stand with the World Health Organization treaty, the IHR amendment? What is going on right now, and what should we be bracing for the coming weeks and years?
Okay, so the most important and the most critical thing right now is that the International Health Regulation Amendments, which passed on June 1st of 2024, that if countries want to opt out, they have to do so by mid-July of this year.
Wow.
And why would somebody want to opt out of the International Health Regulation Amendments? For many reasons. One is the International Health Regulation Amendments require countries to address misinformation and disinformation. And by the way, that language is even stronger in the Pandemic Treaty. In the Pandemic Treaty, it requires nations to prevent misinformation and disinformation. Mm-hmm. So that's worse than censorship. Censorship is if you say something, then they shut you down. Prevention means they shut you down before you say it. Yeah. They prevent you from saying it. The international health regulation amendments, there's many problems, one of which is misinformation and disinformation, which is basically anything that is counter narrative to what the World Health Organization is saying. So like in the beginning of the pandemic, as I'm sure you will recall, they were saying that there was they were mouthing the lies of the Chinese Communist Party, and they were saying there was no human-to-human transmission, which is a flat out, I mean, it's a lie, or at least it's misinformation and disinformation. They're saying that the virus came from a bat as opposed to a lab leak. They were saying that there was no need to shut down travel from China. Meanwhile, China was shutting down travel internally from Wuhan, but they were encouraging people from Wuhan to fly all over the world, and the World Health Organization only mirrored what the Chinese Communist Party was saying. And if you countered that, if you said, no, there is human-to-human transmission. No, this looks to me like it was a lab leak. No, I think that we should shut down travel from China. Then that would be misinformation and disinformation, and nations are going to be required to address that or prevent it, depending on whether you're looking at the International Health Regulation Amendments or at the Pandemic Treaty. So that makes the World Health Organization like the Ministry of Truth, that they get to decide what's true and what's not true. And they get to shut down dissenting voices. And that is the end of science. Science is all about dissenting scientific voices, people battling out, well, this is my data. Well, that's fine, but this is my data. And then they can have a conversation about it and come out with the truth. And they want to silence the voices that don't come from themselves. So that's number one. They are obligating nations to surveil their citizens. The International Health Regulation Amendments and the Pandemic Treaty have to be read together, and they say that they need to be interpreted to be consistent with each other. To understand what all is going to be surveilled, you have to look at the Pandemic Treaty. And in the Pandemic Treaty, they have a section called One Health. This One Health is something that sounds very benign. It's, human health is connected to animal health, is connected to plant health, is connected to the environment. So we really need to, embrace all of these to, balance the interests of the various elements. But listen, okay, what they're saying is not that human health is going to win out. It's not the top priority. It has to be balanced with animal health and plant health and the environment, which means that human health can lose out. So for example, we saw some of the thinking behind like that in California when they had those terrible fires in Los Angeles and there wasn't enough water in the fire hydrants to put it out. How did that happen? Arguably because the governor of California prioritized animal health over human health. He said, there's this fish, it's called the smelt. It's like a 2-inch little fish. Is endangered, and therefore when we have rain, we're going to let all that rainwater flow out to the ocean because the smelt's like that, instead of keeping it in a reservoir so we can battle fires. Really? Right. So this is the kind of thinking behind One Health. It's like human life is not more important than the life of a cockroach or a smelt or crabgrass. There was an article in a prestigious medical journal called The Lancet. It was called One Health, a call to ecological equity. And there's a sentence in there which says, all life is equal and of equal concern. So this is the thinking, that human life is equal to the life of a smelt, to the life of, a bush somewhere, and of equal concern. And just, so number one, humans can lose out like they did in California. And number two, this is an affront on traditional Judeo-Christian values, where we believe that God created human beings in his image and likeness, which is not the same as a smelt. So it's actually, it's an affront to our faith. So anyway, those are in the International Health Regulation Amendments. Another thing that's really concerning about the International Health Regulation Amendments is that they require countries to have a health ID for every single person. And in the developed countries, it's going to be a digital health ID. And they started out calling these vaccine passports. But actually, I co-founded something called the Stop Vaccine Passports Task Force to make people aware of the dangers of these things, that they can serve as the technical platform for the China social credit system. So now they're just calling them health IDs, but what they really are is digital IDs. So in one of the annexes to the international health regulations, they have the specifications for these IDs, which need to have international standards, and they're interoperable. And Tedros announced in June of 2023 that he, in conjunction with the European Union, they were rolling these out, international, interoperable health IDs all over the world. And this has been rolling out since 2023. So what's the problem with this? The problem is that it can serve as the platform for the China social credit system. Whenever you have a mandatory interoperable digital ID, whether it's for health, whether it's a digital driver's license, whether it's just called a digital ID of any sort, it's a place where everything about you can be concentrated into one place. And like in China, they come up with a score. So in China, for example, they are tracking every single part of you. They've got facial recognition, which is something that is becoming more and more common in the West. All right. They got real-time geolocation. So they know what you look like. They know where you are. They know where you live. They know where you work. They know all of your online transactions, everything you've bought, all your internet search history. So if you search for something that the Chinese government doesn't like, for example, if you search terms like Tiananmen Square massacre, your social credit score is going to go down. Your internet search history, your internet spending history, your criminal record, your medical record, all your social media posts, everything about you is concentrated onto an app that's on your phone. And then they come up with a number about how reliable of a Chinese communist sheep you are. And if you are somebody who is fully vaccinated, right, never breaks the rules, never criticizes the government, then you can have a high score and you can live what looks like a normal life. But if your score goes down, for example, if you refuse to be vaccinated, of course, in China, if they're having a vaccine campaign and you refuse to be vaccinated, they'll just drag you out and force you to be vaccinated, probably throw you into a quarantine camp, all right? Let's say you say something against the government, or let's say you jaywalk. I mean, they've got surveillance cameras on all the corners and they can see that you jaywalked. Whatever it is, your score will go down and then you get punished. So some of the punishments can be you lose your job. Your kid won't be able to go to a good school. You will not be able to borrow money, so you will not be able to buy a home or start a business. You won't be able to travel, including on the local bus, all right? And if you keep it up, they will separate you from your credit cards and your bank account. And if people think that that can't happen, in the Western world, it already did happen to the Canadian truckers. They had a protest against vaccine mandates, and the Canadian government, together with the Canadian banks, cut them off from their credit cards and their bank accounts. All right. And if you keep it up in China, they will just disappear you, which means one day no one can find you and you're never seen again. That platform can be used this way in the wrong hands. Is being rolled out by World Health Organization, has been since June of 2023. And although Tedros, the head of the WHO, has said, oh, this is just to track your vaccination status and, have patient summaries, et cetera, which is bad enough. Let's say that you don't want to be vaccinated. Let's say you don't want to take the most recent booster, right? That's going to go on this app, and you might not be able to travel to, go to a restaurant, to go to the supermarket, to, et cetera. But if you really want to see the full capabilities that I believe that the globalists have in mind for these so-called health IDs, which are establishing the infrastructure, then you go to the World Economic Forum website, and there is a chart called Digital IDs that you can find on that site.
Wow.
And according to that chart, you will need digital IDs to access healthcare insurance and healthcare. So no digital ID, no doctor's visit. To open a bank account, no digital ID, no bank account.
Wow.
to carry on online transactions, so no digital ID, you can't buy anything from Amazon, to travel, to own a communications device like a computer or a cell phone, to participate in social media, to pay your taxes, access government benefits, whatever, like in the United States, we have Medicare, we have Medicaid, we have Social Security, no digital ID, no government benefits, and to vote. So basically, every aspect of civilized society, you will have to have not only a digital ID, but you have to be in good standing. Because if you do things that they don't like let's say you've refused to be vaccinated, or you criticize the government, or let's say that you're a doctor and you say something that is contrary to the WHO, they can punish you.
Yeah.
And we don't want this. So these are reasons to opt out of the international health regulation amendments. And there are other reasons as well.
But there is what, until the middle of July, you said, to opt
Right.
out? Wow. And then what?
If you do not opt out, then according to the WHO, your country will be bound by these things.
Oh, wow. So all the 194 member states, maybe except for the USA and Argentina.
Exactly. So I'm urging other countries to opt out. I mean, here's another problem with the international health regulations. They require every country to appoint an international health regulations focal point in their own governments, so that there will be and the purpose of that in an IHR focal point is to ensure the implementation of the international health regulations. And so that there would be some kind of a government body, like a government commission, that does not answer to the people of that country. It answers to the World Health Organization.
Yeah.
And part of what they're trying to do also, part of their job, is to ensure that the legislation, like the domestic legislation of that country, is consistent with its obligations under the international health regulations. And that, again, is an abrogation of national sovereignty, where you're required to have this focal point in your country that is spearheading changing the laws internally of your country to be consistent with the World Health Organization. Its loyalty is to the WHO and not to the country that it's in.
Crazy. I don't even know what to say about that. Where do you even start? What can a simple person can even do to stop it?
Well, I'll tell you what you can do. Go to my website. It's called Anti-Globalist.net. Antiglobalist.net. Anti-Globalist.net. And then in the menu bar, it says resources. So you click the menu bar. Then there's a drop-down menu that says World Health Organization. You click that, and then you will find all I've been talking about. There's like a 2-page handout.
Okay.
It summarizes everything I've just said in 2 pages, and you can email that or print it out and hand it out to people and try to get your country to opt out of the international health regulations. So that would be the best thing that you could do. Another thing you can do is go to antiglobalist.net, same website, and sign the manifesto, because if you put your signature on that manifesto, if you sign your name, then that will put you in touch with me. In other words, I will have your name and your email address, although it will not be displayed on the website. On the website, it's just your first name, the first initial of your last name, and then the country you're from. But I will have your name and your email address, and I will be able to keep in touch with you about further actions that you can take to fight this thing.
Okay, interesting. Thank you so much for sharing that. For so many people, I think, around the world, they don't even know that it's happening.
The mainstream media is not covering this.
Absolutely, yeah.
So I thank God for you and for other alternative media sources, which is the only place that you can hear about this. But it's absolutely true. For people to say, "Oh, this is a conspiracy theory," I say, read the documents. Okay, so if you get my 2-page document, it cites the exact language in the exact articles in the international health regulations. You can look it up. You can see the language for yourself. This is not a conspiracy theory. This is a legal analysis of a treaty. All right. That's what this is. And also just saying, what does this mean? What are the implications of this?
Yeah.
That's why I feel like, I have something to add because I am a lawyer.
Yeah.
So I can read these very long, very dense, very difficult to understand documents and say, hey, look at what this says here. This is what this means to you and me.
Yeah, thank God for you, because without you, it would be almost impossible for everyday person to even understand what is really happening here. Why do you think there's not more political resistance in the national level in other countries beside the United States?
The World Health Organization is funded in large part by big pharma. So this is one of the ways that they are compromised and corrupt. So historically, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation and also Gavi, both of which would benefit and did benefit greatly from vaccines being rolled out all over the world. They're major funders of the World Health Organization. And so that's a conflict of interest. How can we trust the World Health Organization to tell us whether we need vaccines to combat a pandemic when their funders would benefit greatly from vaccines, especially mandatory vaccines? That's a direct conflict of interest. And that conflict of interest is not just in the World Health Organization, it's also in the governments. In the United States, big pharma advertises in all our major media outlets.
Yeah, I know.
In a big
I've
way.
seen the commercials
In a
in
big
Super
way.
Bowl.
Brought to you by Pfizer, all over the place. So what that does is, for the media outlets, they are not really free to say, to criticize a Pfizer product, because then they're going to lose a huge amount of their funding. And it's also true with politicians. They get money from big pharma, and so then that silences them. I'm completely independent. I'm not getting any money from big pharma, believe me. It's hard to find people like you, and other little media outlets that are not getting any money from big pharma, are the ones that are saying the truth about what's going on. So that's why I think people don't know about this.
I agree with you. It's even like that in Israel. I saw an article not too long ago that was published about actually Naftali Bennett. While he was the prime minister, at a certain point when there was still the restrictions of COVID, the article was talking about how his advisors were getting funded by Pfizer, pretty much. So they were advising him to, of course, vaccinate everybody. Yeah.
It's really hard because, I think that there are probably situations in which big pharma is funding both candidates in a race, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So that either one who wins is going to be compromised, and it's almost like you have to take the money because the other guy is, and if you don't, you're not going to have enough money to win the race. It's just a bad situation, I think big pharma should not be allowed to fund candidates personally, but anyway, so that's the international health regulations, and that's the thing that's the most pressing right now. But the World Health Organization just recently, like in the last week or 10 days, passed the new pandemic treaty, which it's also extremely problematic for reasons that overlap with the international health regulations, but there are additional reasons in the pandemic treaty to be very concerned.
Can you give us a few examples, maybe?
I'll tell you the biggest one first.
Yeah.
And then if we have time, I'll tell you more.
All
The
right.
biggest problem, in my opinion, in the pandemic treaty, the status is they adopted it. The World Health Assembly, which is the voting arm of the World Health Organization, adopted it. I think it was last week, maybe the week before last week.
Yeah.
All right. But there's two things. Number one, there's an annex for the PABS system, which I will tell you about, okay? It has not been adopted yet. I don't think it's even been drafted yet. Probably will be adopted at the next World Health Assembly, so next May of 2026. And then so that after that annex is voted upon and they assume that it's going to be adopted, then countries can ratify the pandemic treaty. So we are still 2 steps away from that treaty coming into force. And then 60 countries have to ratify, and then it comes into force, I think, 90 days afterwards, something like that. I don't remember. So it's not a done deal. There are 2 chances to sort of knock this train off the tracks. One is with respect to the annex to the pave system, which I'll talk about. And then the other one is the ratification process within each of the countries. All right. So let me tell you what the pave system is. pave stands for Pathogen Access and Benefit Sharing System. All right. Pathogen access and benefit sharing. So what's pathogen access? Pathogen access is when a country finds a pathogen with pandemic potential, PPP. A pathogen with pandemic potential is a pathogen that could cause a pandemic. So it's like a deadly pathogen, or at least something that makes people very sick. So under the PABS system, the country would send that pathogen. Well, first of all, before we even talk about that, to me, if you find a pathogen with pandemic potential, what should you do? You know, in my opinion, you quarantine it, right? You don't send it around. You try to encapsulate it so it doesn't get out. But no, under the PABS system, you send it to the World Health Organization, and then the World Health Organization farms it out to labs all over the world with the idea in mind that they would create vaccines or other therapeutics.
Wow.
Well, what could possibly go wrong, right? To the extent that COVID-19 virus escaped from a lab in Wuhan, if you send these pathogens out to labs all over the world, that greatly increases the risk of lab leaks.
Right.
The pathogens falling into the hands of bad actors, someone who wants to launch a bioterrorist attack on the world or on a specific country. There's nothing in there that says that your enemy countries are not going to be able to get access to these to these pathogens. So that's the number one problem. So that's pathogen access.
Wow.
And then benefit sharing, that the country that came up with the original pathogen would get compensated for that. So can you imagine that? It's like you find something that can kill humanity, and so you get paid for it. I mean,
Wow.
That's such backward thinking to begin with. The benefit sharing is developed countries in the world are supposed to pony up and put together money to create state-of-the-art labs in developing countries so that they can develop vaccines, so that they can then share the benefit of making these vaccines and then getting all the royalties that you get from these vaccines. And by the way, there's a lot of money at stake here, especially for mRNA vaccines, which are cheap to make. I saw an interview of Bill Gates with the World Economic Forum, and the interviewer asked him what his return on investment was for vaccines, and he said it was 20 to 1. So that for every dollar he spent creating a vaccine, he got $20 back. He donated or whatever about $10 billion. He put about $10 billion into vaccine development and got, I guess, $200 billion back if it's a 20 to 1.
Wow.
So that's a chunk of change, and that's why he can afford to bankroll, the World Health Organization and any number of other nefarious organizations.
Wow, that's insane. And yeah, not to mention exactly who's funding the World Health Organization and their world takeover kind of laws that they're trying to implement right now. I want to take another step back and because the World Health Organization and the pandemic treaty and everything that's happening, I think it's a part of a bigger plan, actually, bigger agenda, I guess, if I may say. It is part of Agenda 2030, right? And can you tell me how is it connected? What are the implications from the UN as well? How is that all connecting?
The main thing that the UN has done recently, so what I have just described to you is how the World Health Organization could take over in the case of another pandemic through these digital IDs, through censorship and surveillance, international health regulation, focal points through the pathogen access and benefit sharing system. So all of this has to do with using health as a pretext for Chinese-style global governance, basically, is what I would say it is.
Oh.
So the United Nations recently passed something called the Pact for the Future, which does the same thing, but not simply on the grounds of health. So the Pact for the Future passed under the Biden administration in September of 2024.
Okay.
And what it does is it establishes an emergency platform that will operationalize automatically in the case of what they call a complex global shock. So what does that mean?
Wow.
They have a chart of things that they would characterize as complex global shocks. And that would include a pandemic. It would include a climate change, a major climactic event, supply chain disruption, a disruption in the banking system, a disruption in the electrical grid, a disruption in the movement of people, what they call a unforeseen black swan event.
Wow.
Anything they didn't think of, a major disruption in outer space, to not to leave the rest of the universe, out of this, right? So I guess if two galaxies collide, UN takes over. So let's say that a complex global shock happens in the opinion of the head of the United Nations. Then what they've got, and this passed, all right, this was adopted last September, is that they will have an emergency platform. So this complex global shock is going to give rise to an emergency platform that will operationalize automatically, meaning that the nations of the world have already passed, they've already agreed to this emergency platform, so they don't have to agree to it again. The UN will just start calling the shots about how the world is going to handle this.
Wow.
And again, that is, in the wrong hands, and I would argue that it's already in the wrong hands. This could lead to Chinese-style totalitarian control.
Absolutely. Yeah, you see it happening with digital currency that's been going around in many nations all over the world, and in Israel right now. They're trying to abolish cash slowly but surely. To mention that you have been visiting Israel and got to speak in the Knesset not too long ago. So I just wanted to congratulate you on that.
I flew all the way to Israel and back, which I don't even know how many hours that is.
Wow.
Round trip, 36 hours plus getting to the airport and back and all of that to speak for 3 minutes at the Knesset.
Wow.
But it was a very impactful 3 minutes, and it's the repercussions are still happening. There's a very, very lively and alive debate in Israel as a result of that, and also as a result of the efforts of a number of people, including Yehonatan Segev and Heidi Moses, and a number of other just stunning activists. I mean, the Israeli activists are just, I love them. And it's just my great honor to be one of their colleagues and to help in any way that I can.
Internationally speaking, is there anything like any executive decisions that can be reversed by like future governments? So, for example, I think you talked about or maybe tweeted about something. Say it's great that Trump exited the World Health Organization. However, if a next president comes in and he has maybe different agendas in mind, they can reverse what happened, and so there's still some kind of a risk of joining the WHO. Is there anything that can be done to like permanently block them, or an ongoing battle?
So this is under American law, all right? Trump withdrew us from the World Health Organization by what we call an executive order. So he just, as president of the United States, he said, you know what? We're out. That's it. But the problem is that that was a great thing. I mean, that was one of the happiest moments of my year, was when he did that, because I and others have been working so hard towards that end. I mean, I just can't even tell you how overjoyed I was. But the next president under American law can just put us right back. And that's what happened last time. Trump took us out in his first term, late in the term, and then Joe Biden put us back in. So the only way under American law that we can stay out is if we have legislation to keep us out. In other words, if Congress passes a bill saying we're out of the World Health Organization, we formally withdraw from the World Health Organization and we're not going back. So if people go onto my website, anti-globalist.net, these would be Americans, that only Americans would be allowed to do this because this is an American thing. If you click on the icon that says take action, there's a place there that you can send a message to your congressional representatives saying we need legislation to keep us out of the World Health Organization permanently. In terms of the rest of the world, everybody needs to opt out of the international health regulations. And all you have to do is have somebody in the government, they don't say who, the president or the head of the health minister or somebody, send a letter to the secretariat at the World Health Organization saying we are opting out of the international health regulations. Mm-hmm. And then that country will not be bound by it. And better yet, I think that countries should withdraw from the World Health Organization. The United States did it, Argentina did it. RFK Jr., who I think is just a man of tremendous vision and courage, recently, just like in the last couple days, has said that he met with the president of Argentina, Javier Milei, to say that together they are forming a new organization to be an alternative to the World Health Organization that will be not corrupt, that will really care about people's health, that will be based on real science, that will not be compromised by big pharma.
If you're looking for mental clarity, natural focus, and sharper memory without chemicals or pharmaceuticals, this is the product for you. Our Alliance Men drops are especially helpful for people suffering from brain injuries, brain fog. This powerful mushroom is being studied for its potential to support nerve regeneration, cognitive function, and brain healing. We're not backed up by big pharma, big tech, or by the government. We rely solely on you guys. Your support helps us to stay independent and continue exposing the truth. Order your Lion's Mane drops now at chooselovenotfear.shop.
And I would encourage other countries, especially Israel, withdraw from the World Health Organization and join the United States and Argentina and other countries as well, and have a free collaboration, countries that actually really care about the health of the world. And also that it would not be so focused on vaccines, right? Which is what the World Health Organization has been. And I think it's because they are compromised, because they're funded by people who will benefit hugely economically if the world has a pandemic that requires a response of a vaccine in every arm. Personally, I believe that's why they're so obsessively focused on vaccines. But RFK Jr. in the United States is taking a much more holistic view of health in terms of just building our health, building our immunity. Especially in the United States, we're one of the sickest countries in the world because of eating, junk food and not exercising and all the rest of it. I would love to see a worldwide movement of countries to get their citizens healthy, get rid of obesity, stop eating bad food, start eating healthy food, exercise, to take therapeutics if you get sick that are not necessarily vaccines. There are many things that you could have taken during COVID that were not vaccines that would have helped.
Yeah.
So anyway, I would love to see a worldwide movement, a worldwide organization that's an alternative to the World Health Organization that people can trust. And I want to tell you something else. This is actually something that the World Health Organization did that I think that they were not aware that they were doing, which is that by censoring doctors and scientists and other professionals, influencers, by silencing them for telling the truth, like there is human-to-human transmission, or like, these different repurposed drugs can help with COVID. By silencing them, by causing them to lose their licenses, by persecuting them, what they did is they identified all the most courageous people in the medical freedom movement worldwide. And now we all know who each other is. We know each other. We're all identified. And I would like to see the people who are the true heroes who really took it on the chin during COVID for taking a strong stand all over the world. All those people to be the pillars of this new organization that would be the alternative to the World Health Organization.
Yes, amen. I really hope so too. Yeah.
I mean, those would be the greatest people in the world, and I would love to play a role in that, you know? I would love to be a part of that movement. The best part of doing this work is becoming friends with other people who are truly heroic.
Mhm.
And I really felt that in Israel. I mean, there are so many really true heroes in Israel, and it was such an honor to get to know them. And you know, Yehonatan Segev organized a dinner for me where all these heroes were sitting around the table. It was like a table of heroes. And it was one of the highlights of my year, you know, to be included in that. I mean, the dinner was actually in my honor. So I was really kind of shocked by all of that. But you get the most extraordinary friends by joining this movement. I would love to see an organization that's an alternative to the World Health Organization that is comprised of heroic doctors and scientists and other activists and influencers.
Mhm. Absolutely. I surely hope so too. That would be amazing. What do you think? Like, what is the solution for the World Health Organization? Defunding them is the solution? Just exiting the World Health Organization? What do we do with these people?
Well, the solution for the World Health Organization, in my opinion, is for it to cease to exist.
I know. Yeah.
He said something along the lines of the World Health Organization, which I believe should be completely abolished. I mean, I think that's very close to a direct quote of what Donald Trump said.
Yeah.
It's corrupt to the core. I mean, okay, so the original Director General of the World Health Organization, his name was Brock Chisholm.
Mhm.
Here's a quote from this guy, okay? He says, "In order to achieve world governance, it is necessary to remove from the minds of men their loyalty to their families, their countries, and their religious traditions." I mean, that's a paraphrase, but it's pretty close to a quote.
I saw that too. Yeah.
That is the thought of the original Director General of the World Health Organization. And, you know, he was a psychiatrist. So I shudder to think about how he would propose to remove from the minds of men their loyalty to their traditions, their families, their countries, their faith. I mean, how do you do that, Dr. Chisholm? You know, what do you put people through to remove this from their minds? That's kind of frightening to think about. There are people who believe that the World Health Organization, you know, I mean, the World Health Organization has done some good things, and that it was sort of this innocent organization from the beginning, and then it got corrupted. And I question that. I wonder whether it was just corrupt from the beginning.
It surely looks like it. To the viewers, maybe who are just listening to this for the first time and just learning about this topic, and they're shocked, they don't know what to do, what would you tell them to inspire them? What can they do to fight back and to try to change what's happening in their country?
Go to my website, antiglobalist.net, and sign the manifesto. It's one word, antiglobalist.net. So we've got like over 4,000 signatures from, I don't know how many countries, more than 20 countries. And what that will do is it will alert me to your existence, okay? So whatever country you're in, and then I can be in touch with you to strategize about what you can do in your country. What people can do in their country is, I guess the first and most important thing is to contact your representatives to get them to opt out of the international health regulations by mid-July. I think the date is either July 17th or July 19th. To opt out, you need to sort of build a movement to do that, and I can talk to you about how to do it. I mean, we built a movement in the United States, and I know how to build movements.
Okay.
It takes energy. It takes time and energy.
Mhm.
So that would be the first thing I would ask people to do. It's important for us to collaborate. At antiglobalist.net, what I do is I create the legal analysis, so people have a legal analysis of the pandemic treaty, a legal analysis of the international health regulations that I've already got a 2-pager up about the international health regulations. I'm working on one for the pandemic treaty. You can just print it out and hand it to your representatives, hand it out to anybody, or just email it to people. There will be links. And that is a good way to get the word out. And if there's enough people from some country that want me to translate it into their language, I can do that also. You can email me also. My email address is reggielittlejohn@gmail.com. Email me and say, look, just contact me and I can help. We can work together.
That's amazing, amazing, amazing. You're a ray of sunshine, Reggie, really. It's such an honor and a pleasure talking to you and to have you in our show today. Thank you so much for your time.
Well, thank you so much for having me. And you are a ray of sunshine as well. And I wish you all the best.
I learned a lot, to tell you the truth. I hope this interview goes far and wide.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for having your other guests on and giving us a place to talk about these things, because it's very hard to get the word out, and we depend on people like you to help us.
Thank you. The feeling is mutual. Thank you so much, Reggie.
All right, take care.
Bye.